Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame here in Canton, Ohio. Today, for our next edition of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series, today featuring Andrew Frey from the Detroit Lions. And we'll get to him here in a second to introduce himself and all the great things he's doing up there in Detroit. But if this is your first time tuning in for Before the Snap, first off, thank you so much for tuning in. We're so grateful that you chose to be a part of this program today. You're going to learn a lot about a specific career in and around the game of football and what Andrew does on a day-to-day basis with his job with the Detroit Lions. And the goal is to show there are so many great, cool, and unique careers out there that you might be interested, that you may not even knew existed until today. If you've been with us before, thank you so much for tuning back in. You guys are in store for another excellent program. Here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's our mission to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence together. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and honesty. And those 5 values, they make great football players excellent and may make them Hall of Famers one day. And I can guarantee you that the 354 Hall of Famers use those values to make them the football players that they were. But more importantly, those values can make you a great person, great individual, great member of your community, and truly a great employee of whatever organization you end up at. You'll be surprised how many times you hear these values pop up today throughout the entire program, just showcasing how important they actually are. Before we get started, a few thank yous I'd like to pass out. First and foremost, Andrew, thank you so much for giving time out of your busy schedule today. I know, the NFL season's wrapped up. We're pushing towards the playoffs, the Super Bowl here, but we know that your job doesn't stop just because the season is over. So we thank you for giving your time for us today, and truly everything you do for the game of football, and indirectly everything you do for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Secondly, teachers, administrators, professors, educators, anybody that sent this program out to their students today, watching us live or might be watching us down the road, thank you so much for allowing us to be a small part of your students' learning experience. And then lastly, as we always say to students, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, this program does not take place without our students' participation. So I'm excited today. We got Nathan down in our rare book room, a different backdrop for him today. You're going to hear from him a little bit later on and all the great questions from our students we have today. So as always, if you have a question, put it in the live chat. State your name, your school, your question. Nathan's going to be writing all those down, and we'll get it to him to ask some of the great questions that we get from your students today. But we can't ask them unless you submit them. So put them down there. Let us know where you're watching from, and we'll do our best to make them as part of the program. So as I said, today we are lucky and grateful to be joined by Andrew Frey, who is the Director of Marketing Events for the Detroit Lions. He is currently in his 4th season with the club and leads all fan experience and operational elements for training camp, leads the planning and implementation of all in-stadium promotions, the Pride Plaza concourse activation, and collaborates with the game presentation team on all elements of game day entertainment, leading on-field operational components. A lot of big words in there. He's got a pretty cool job. Very, very busy guy. Prior to the Detroit Lions, Andrew spent his first 7 years of his career working in collegiate sports for Michigan State Athletics, and as much as it pains me to say, Michigan Athletics and Northwestern Athletics as well. He received his undergraduate degree in marketing and his graduate degree in sports administration, both from Sparty from Michigan State. So we are happy to welcome Andrew Frey to Before the Snap Day. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. I'm excited to get going here.
Awesome. Well, we'll start this off as we do every program. Can you give us maybe a 10,000 foot view? We read through your bio, some of the things that you did there, but on a day-to-day basis throughout the season, in the off season, what are some of the things you're working on with your career title?
Yeah, so I handle all of the fan experience elements for the Lions. So a big one's training camp to start. I put on all the operational components. That's from setting up bleachers to hospitality tents, to throwing T-shirts in the crowd, to interacting with our coaches and players. Then during the season, I'm actually down on the field, coordinating all the on-field elements that we do. So again, whether it's a T-shirt toss, bringing someone down on the field to be recognized, a video board element that we may do, really everything that's happening during those media timeouts. When you're at home, it's probably a commercial on the TV. Well, in the stadium, we're doing our promotion. So coordinating that, our scripts, our rundowns, our timing sheets throughout the year. And then as we get back into the off season, about this time of year, we're looking towards the NFL draft. So that's really a sticking point for us right now, getting prepared for that. We have the number 2 overall pick. So a lot of excitement around here for that.
Awesome. And looking at your job, when you see, a marketing title, that's one that everybody kind of says when they get through their collegiate time and they're going to classes, that's the one that kind of sticks out to them. But, a lot of time when you think marketing, you think of advertising and promotion, email blasts. And, so a lot of people think that's what marketing is. But can you talk a little bit about, how you might do some of that in your career, but, your job as with the marketing title, how much actually you handle, outside of what everybody might think you do?
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into marketing, like you said, advertising, branding, promotion, email marketing. To me, it's really bringing everyone together. So, we have communication departments, we have PR departments, video, game presentation, community relations. And when I'm putting on a marketing event, it's really about bringing all of those different entities together to put on that type of event or put on that type of promotion. Because I got to know what everyone's doing, what their goals are, what their objectives are, and really my job is to bring that all together and then execute a successful event. So I spend a lot of my time communicating, to be honest. A lot of emails, a lot of drive-bys, a lot of back and forth to get things set up. But really, when you look at marketing, it's sort of about bringing everyone together and making sure that you have a consistent brand image that's going out to the external public.
How important is it? You just mentioned there, working with a bunch of other different departments. How important is it to have a high level of communication, be able to bounce ideas off of other people, not only within your own department, but all the other different parts of the organization you're working with as well?
It's huge, especially in the NFL. Here at the Lions, we actually have some folks out in Allen Park at our training facility, and then some down here in downtown Detroit at Ford Field. So communication is crucial for us. Probably the biggest thing that we do. And like I said, my job is to bring us all together. It's having, okay, what is our ticketing department? What are their goals for this event? Our community relations department, what are their goals for this event? It's sort of congregating all of that information and making sure I'm communicating with people. Meeting cadence is incredibly important. You wouldn't think that, but setting consistent meetings where we're talking, we're interacting, in this new sort of hybrid remote lifestyle that we're in. Communicating is harder than it's ever been, but it's more important than it's ever been. So my job is really to set that up, make sure that we're talking, make sure that we're sort of getting our goals out at the start, and then as we go, just making sure we're all on track. So we put campaigns in place, we put event plans in place, and really working remote has made that a little bit more challenging. But I found ways to kind of work around that and just make sure we're staying consistent and talking.
You mentioned working remote, and we're in a totally different atmosphere than we were 2 years ago when it comes to working and events and crowds and so many different things. So, you talked about how it affected you a little bit, but truly, how did the pandemic affect your job? For a year and a half, there were really, no big events. So nobody in the stands, no one's in the stands. That means there's no off-field promotions. How did your job change, throughout the pandemic? Were you pulled in different directions? And can you kind of talk about how important it is to be creative and have a high level of creativity when it comes to something like that?
Yeah, so my story is probably a little bit unique there. So in 2020, we didn't have fans at Ford Field for our games. I actually was running our Instagram account. So I was posting on story, on the main feed, working with our creative team, with our social teams to sort of run our Instagram on game days, which is something that I hadn't done before. It kind of gave me a good look at that side of things. So really for about 6 months, I was really helping out with our Instagram and our social strategy. And then as we got back into 2021, we got back into the event mode, but doing it safely, making sure that we were following all of our health and safety protocols that we had in place now, making sure that we were just bringing people back to Ford Field in a safe manner. Our really biggest event that we did was training camp last year. That was sort of the first time we were able to get our fans back on site, back around our players and our coaches. And a lot went into that. It was new for everyone. No one had really went through that type of off season. So again, it was a lot of communicating with our folks and making sure we were all in line, making sure that the health and safety of our fans was our top priority, and making sure we get them back to our events. So we've had a season now with fans back in the stands, so it's getting back to normal a little bit, but definitely some new creative ideas that came up over the last year that I don't think any of us really expected doing in our careers. So it's been a pretty eye-opening year, but hoping to get back to somewhat normal as we head into this off season and next year.
And and before I ask my next question, I just saw your text. I do apologize. It is Andrew Frey, not Andrew Frey. So
Like French fries. Yeah.
my apologies on that. And to kind of dive in and talk a little bit about, things you meant right there. You're involved in sports, you're involved in a game like football, and sometimes, maybe not in your position, but I feel like people take the fans for granted and, take those full stadiums, those sellouts for granted until you don't have it anymore. And then you go through a season of not having it. How important, what's the atmosphere like that first game back, full stands, full stadium, having everybody there? What was it like for you? And then, and looking back, what was your thoughts going into that? Were you excited, looking forward to it, nervous? How was that transition? Now we talked about into COVID, but out of COVID, how was that transition for you?
So anyone that knows Lions fans, we have one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL, if not the most passionate fan base. We love our fans. It's one pride here in Detroit. So having them back at games I really can't put it into words. Makes such a big difference for us. I had been at a couple games during the COVID season in 2020, and it almost felt eerie without our fans in the stands, and seeing them back, seeing them tailgating around our Pride Plaza area, seeing them around the concourse, sort of flooding back into our stadium this year has been amazing. And like I said, anyone that knows our fans know that they're one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL, and we can't do what we do without them. They really drive us, and that's what we do. One of our campaigns this year, driven by Detroit. So this was our campaign for this last season. It really is. We're driven by the city of Detroit, driven by our fan base. And they're really what fuels us for the season, for our games, and for everything that we do.
Now, Andrew, I'll be honest, and I'm going to throw Nathan under the bus here as well. We are Packers fans, so I don't want you to be upset. Don't want you to hang up. But I will say personally, I was at the game, week 18. I drove up, went to the game. And, I saw, never been there before, took the stadium in. Obviously, Packers did not win, which I'm sure you were happy about. But,
I was going to ask you who won that game.
Yeah, so the Green Bay did not win that game. So, taking it in and seeing it, the atmosphere was crazy. And you mentioned, I'm glad you brought up Driven by Detroit, that hype video that plays before the game, which with Dan Campbell, the new head coach, kind of voicing that over, I was ready to run through the wall, and I wasn't even a Lions fan. So I think the campaign really speaks to, what the city is about, and it is important to kind of bring that in to, what the team is about. But, talk about Dan Campbell coming in, this high motor guy. Everybody knows the press conference, his introductory one there, and all the great quotes that came out of that. And I think a really interesting question is when somebody like that comes into the organization, you have the football side, obviously, that's on the field, working that way. But then there's the business side, the marketing side of everything as well. I think it's really unique how the relationships between the two are. So when a new head coach like Dan Campbell comes in, do you get to sit down and talk with them, talk with the coaching staff? And how is that relationship built, obviously, and then pushing the whole Detroit Lions organization forward?
Yes, we absolutely do. When Coach came in, we sat down and, obviously everyone saw his press conference, but we wanted to make sure that we are aligning our marketing goals with the football goals, right? We want to make sure that we're in lockstep with what they're doing, what's happening out in Allen Park. So yeah, we'll sit down with them and sort of go over what our vision is for the season, what their vision is, and then we'll take some of those things that they tell us and we'll implement them into our campaigns, into our plans. So we want to make sure we're not sort of button heads with different campaigns, different messages. Coach came in and he changed our culture, right? And we wanted to make sure that we were expressing that from a marketing side too. So we definitely need to listen to what Coach is saying over there. So we're able to meet with them pretty frequently just to kind of see where their head's at, what's going on. They'll meet with our full staff and just kind of explain what's going on from the football side, which has been great. And like I said, it's sort of a new culture here in Detroit. And we're really excited. I think there's a lot of good things that have come from it.
Awesome. Well, I've got a bunch more questions I can go through, but we're here to hear those student questions. So I'm going to throw it downstairs to Nathan Martin, the Youth and Education Coordinator, who's got a couple questions from some of our students who tune in. So Nathan, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, Jake, thank you so much for sending it down here. And Andrew, thanks for being part of the program. First question we have from a student is from Max, all the way out in California. And he said, what new trends are you seeing in the sports industry, in the marketing industry, and how do you think that'll impact your job and your experience working in marketing?
Yeah, I would say that everything that's happened on social media, on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, we're trying to figure out what's going on there, and we're trying to incorporate that into our game days. We're trying to stay relevant, and we want to kind of make sure we're ahead of the curve, right? And that we're ahead of the trends that are going on. So we monitor TikTok, we monitor Instagram, Twitter. There was a teacher about a month ago that went viral for rolling out a TV cart. I don't know if you guys saw this at all, but he went viral because he rolled out a TV cart. One of our TikTok guys wrote a comment that said basically roll out the TV cart and they would cancel the test for the kids for the year. We brought that guy to Ford Field for the last game. Jake, you maybe you saw this.
Yep, I did. They recognized him there at during one of the breaks.
We rolled out the TV card for him on the field. And it was sort of a 360-degree integration. It went from social media into our game days. And we try and do that kind of stuff just to stay ahead of the curve, right? And make sure that we're staying relevant and that, we're aware of what's going on. So I would say that's a big one, is just making sure you're monitoring the day-to-day, what's going viral, what's out there, what people are talking about. If anyone's relating back to Detroit or the Lions, to see if, hey, how can we interact with these people? How can we bring them to our games? How can we encourage them to come out to our events? So I would just say sort of staying in touch. I'm 31. I probably grew up in the social media age. So I'm pretty comfortable using some of those apps, but I rely on some of our younger folks, whether it's an intern or some of our entry-level staff members, because they're very in tune with what's going on, right? So we just want to make sure we're listening to everyone, seeing what's happening, and then figuring out how we can integrate it into what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And Elijah from Dordt University in Iowa asked the question, and I'm going to kind of change it a little bit because you started answering it, but I think we could dive a little bit deeper. He mentions TikTok and how that's kind of changed the game. It's the newest, I guess, social media fad. But how important is it for you guys to use those so that you gain younger fans? You think about building that next generation of Lions fans. We always joke, with the kids that come through the Hall of Fame, like, how many of you have Facebook? And no one raises their hand. They're like, oh, that's what my parents, my grandparents use, So how important is it for you as an organization, like whether it's TikTok, whether it's the next thing, you're building that next generation of fans and using those tools?
It's extremely important. I think anyone that follows our TikTok, we have a guy with our new media team who runs that, and he's the CEO of Verified Replies. So he found a niche that was replying to all the comments that were happening on our TikTok post, and he's really taken that and ran with it. And we just try and build upon that. Like I said, we want to stay relevant. We want to go where the people are, right? People are on social media, people are on TikTok. That's where we're going to go, and that's where we're going to interact with folks, and especially the younger generation. We want to make sure that we're interacting, showing them that we care, and doing what we can to potentially bring them to a game, or just talk about the Lions brand, or let them know what we're doing, but in a more, fun, youthful way. We still do the traditional advertising like billboards and some radio and print, digital ads and all that, but really social media is where everyone's at right now. So we just want to make sure we're there too.
Yeah, that's a great point. You got to go where the people are at. So you're going to use those tools on social media. This is from Rondell, who attends Mercyhurst University in Pennsylvania, and he wants to know, fan identification is an important part of the job in marketing, but he also said, what's the most difficult part of your job when you're marketing?
I would say just things change quick. A season can go a certain way, either good or bad, very quickly. We always say you have to be prepared to win no matter what. So at some point we're going to start winning, and we got to be prepared for that. But I just think the ebbs and the flows of the season, you go on a 3-game win streak, you go on a 3-game losing streak, you sort of have to be prepared to adapt throughout the year. So just having plans in place and making sure you're ready to go, being strategic, planning ahead, making sure you have backup plans in place. We only have 10 home games, right? So, we don't have the 41 home games like the NHL or NBA, or 81 home games like the MLB. We have 10 chances really to impact our fans and make a difference here at Ford Field. We obviously have events going on throughout the year, but those 10 home games are very important. We want to be perfect. We want to put on a really good show for everyone. And there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it, a lot of rehearsals and things like that. And it can get difficult, the ebbs and the flows of the season, but you kind of sort of have to stay in the middle, right? You can't get too high, you can't get too low. So we got a job to do out there, and we just want to make sure that we're doing it to the best of our ability. And like I said, putting on a good show for our fans. So it can be tough, but we do what we can.
So this question comes from Shane, and you mentioned, Major League Baseball or the NHL, how they have more home games. Do you ever interact with people that have the same position, either for other NFL teams or maybe in other sports? And are you bouncing ideas off each other? Are you cross-pollinating your marketing efforts? What interaction do you have with other franchises, whether in the NFL or other leagues?
Yeah, we're pretty familiar with our cohorts around Detroit that are in similar positions. What are they doing that's new and innovative? What are they doing that we could potentially implement into our games? Who is their audience? How are they interacting with their audience? We're very aware of that just in the Detroit market. And then across the league, we have all club calls with some other teams just to sort of stay in line with what's going on. Best practices are shared, obviously, so we can kind of take a look at what's happening around the league. And then really in general, I'm on Twitter during big games, right? I'm on Instagram during big games. It's like, what are people doing? What are they reacting to? What's going viral on Instagram or Twitter, or how are people interacting with the game? And taking some of those ideas, we obviously want to make sure that they're our own, right? And that they're sort of curated to Detroit. But we're all just sort of aware of what's happening, and we have a good group here in Detroit, I think, across all of our teams to interact and share ideas. So it's been great.
Yeah, that's a good example, I guess, in just outlining how you work with these other teams and franchises, because it's like that balance between we're competing against them on the football field, and in some ways you are competing for fans. You want more fans than the Vikings or the Packers, but like you can learn from what they're doing, they can learn from what you're doing. So you're trying to balance that. That balancing act has got to be pretty interesting on those phone calls sometimes. But students, keep submitting your questions. We'll come back down here at least once or twice. I'm going to send it back to Jake though right now for some more questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, Andrew, I want to talk a little about, you mentioned so many great things there. We were talking before, being and working in sports provides a super unique opportunity to be a part of all of these big events and promotions and on-field activations that not a lot of people get to be involved with if they have, a marketing title or, have a job in any other profession. So, looking back on your career, you've had your time in collegiate athletics. And we'll talk about that here in a bit. You had your time with the Lions. If you could pick one moment that's been your favorite on the field moment, favorite thing to where at the end of your career, you're going to look back and go, man, I can't believe I was a part of that. What was that moment for you so far?
I'm going to have a couple just because there's been a
That's
couple.
Okay.
Anyone who's familiar with Michigan State football, I was down on the field for Little Giants. That's when they had the fake field goal pass to beat Notre Dame. I was there for the Rose Bowl when they went to the Rose Bowl in, I believe, 2014. So that was a really cool experience. When I was at Northwestern, it was actually the first year their men's basketball team made the NCAA tournament. I believe that was 2016 or 17. That was a really cool year. We did a lot of really unique, interesting things, and it really allowed us to be creative that year. Signing of the Stars at Michigan. I don't know if anyone remembers that event back in the day. It was a recruiting event that they did at the auditorium downtown, and Tom Brady, Derek Jeter, those guys came out for that, and it was very, very unique event. So I've been very lucky in my career, I'll say. It seems like every spot I've been, there's been some success on the field, and it's allowed for some really unique, creative opportunities, and just very blessed and lucky to be a part of that.
And you talk about having those moments, and one of the big moments for the Lions this offseason was obviously Calvin Johnson being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we thought, what a better way to showcase that and showcase what we do here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, what our mission is all about, than to go live right into our museum to look at that bronze bust of Calvin Johnson. So I'm gonna throw it out to Jerry Shockey, Director of Youth and Education, who's in front of that bronze bust. So Jerry, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Jake, and thank you, Andrew, for interacting with our students all across the country that are tuning in over YouTube Live. I was kind of laughing because, talk about that older generation that's, Facebook and Twitter, that's me. So I don't even, what's that other thing called? Like Snap Tick or something like that or whatever. Yep. So anyhow, but I want to welcome you guys to the Hall of Fame Gallery here in Canton, Ohio. It's here that everyone that visits the museum wants to spend time, and we honor the greatest players ever. Now, As you can see, and if you were able to look around, all the great busts and all the greatest football players, coaches, and administrators that have ever played and participated in the game. But to put this in perspective, though, what this means is that there have been about 300 million people that have played the game at the high school, college, and NFL level, and Little League. 5 million people to play it at the college level, and over 29,000 people to play, coach, or administrating the game of professional football. And get this, there are only 354 members of the Hall of Fame. One of those is this guy right here, Calvin Johnson, aka Megatron. So I got a question for you, Andrew. You know, obviously you guys use this as an opportunity to, with his induction, to continue engaging fans and all the marketing that went behind it. I personally, I want to know, as well as probably the students, what is the difference between the in-season and off-season marketing plan, with the events? And I know in the NFL, it's a 365 product now. There's really no off-season necessarily, but there is some change in responsibilities, less game ops, stuff like that. How does your schedule change between in-season and off-season?
Yeah, so we'll start with right now. So obviously our season just ended. We're getting ready for next year, right? We're recapping what just happened, what happened over the last 6 months, what went well, what didn't go well, what we can improve on. And we're talking, we're meeting, and our minds are fresh from the season. So it is a long off season here. So if you sort of wait to do that after a couple months, you forget what happened. So we're talking right now, we're recapping, just coming up with strategies for next year. We're getting ready for the NFL draft. That's a huge tentpole event for us in the off season. We throw a couple events for that, send some people out to Vegas. We're getting ready for our ticket on sales, things like that. So it's a lot of strategy. It's a lot of planning, right? We don't have games going on right now, but we want to make sure that we're on the ball, that we're ready to go. When we release our schedule, it's really, we're just putting things down on paper, and we're saying, all right, we're doing this game. We're going to do this promotion, this game theme for this game. Getting ready for that. And then with me, training camp's a huge one. So I start planning training camp now. It's usually the last week of July, early August. So whether it's, sourcing new vendors, working with past clients, thinking of different promotions that we can do, different ways to engage our coaches and our players for our fans. A lot of strategy. And then once we get in the season, every other week we got a game. Like I said, we try and be perfect every game. So you can't start planning in the fall for your games. It's not really a week by week thing. We're getting ready now. And just making sure that everything that we want to do, we have the ability to do. And I think with the NFL, everything's just bigger and brighter, right? You're bringing more people for a halftime show, or you're bringing more people down on the field, or there's just more hoops to really jump through. So the off season is long, but the season comes quick, if that makes sense. So it's just a lot of planning, and then the season is just about executing your strategies.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate your time here today. Thank you again for connecting on here for Before the Snap. You are a valuable resource for all of our students that are connected in here today. So, Jake, I'll send it back to you, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. And I kind of want to dive in, you talk about, off season, in season, so many different things that you work on there as a part of, but at the core of what you do, is the game of football. And you get to kind of see it from a unique viewpoint, unique perspective, because it's, you're seeing these special moments on the field, recognizing teachers, for example, like you talked about earlier, see these moments out in the community. So I know you have to understand and can see the power that the game of football has. So, and taking a step back, how important is the game? What does it teach those who play it, coach it, fans of it? So many different things that people can be involved with the game of football. What are some of those life lessons that people can take away from the game?
Teamwork, I think, is a huge one, obviously. Attitude, and then how to be a leader. And that translates over to the business side as well. Nothing that I do, I can't do without the members of our team. None of the promotions or events that I put on, I can do without those people. So collaborating, being a good teammate, that's huge. And that obviously translates over to football as well. Attitude is huge. There's going to be long days, especially in sports. They don't play games on Tuesdays at noon, right? They play them on weekends and weeknights and all that. So there's a lot of time that goes into this. So having a good attitude is crucial. And You learn how to be a leader, right? I mean, you gotta for football, it's a leader of men, and I think in the business side, it's how can you lead your team? How can you get everyone rowing in the right direction, in the same direction? And I think they all kind of translate over pretty well. I think you learn that pretty quick once you get into the business side of sports. I was an athlete growing up, and I always played on teams, and a lot of those qualities translate over. And if you're a good teammate, usually it translates over to being a good coworker and all that. So.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was even going to say all those things you talked about can not only make you a great football player, great athlete, great individual, but they make you a great employee. So it just goes to show that, we're unapologetically football here at the Hall of Fame. I'm sure you are there at the Lions as well. And we know there's so many things that can teach those values, but the game of football is truly special in that aspect for sure. I got the YouTube stream pulled up here. I know Nathan does as well. And there have just been questions flying in. So I'm going to send it down to Nathan for, got a couple more questions here from some of our students who are tuning in.
Yeah, we got a ton of questions coming in actually. So let me just get straight to it. We got a question from Roland, a student in New York, and he said, can you give us a little bit more detail about your path and your career? You mentioned you're only 31 years old. You've got this position with the Lions. I mean, to some people, they're like, man, he's already got the dream job. So like, how did you get there by the time you're 31? I guess if you could kind of give the students a little bit of the step-by-step process for you.
Sure. So it wasn't like this, it didn't just go straight up. It was a challenge. A lot happened over the last 15 years or so. In high school, I was in DECA. I was in a sports marketing class. I don't know how many people are familiar with DECA, but it sort of gave me the behind the scenes of what goes on the business side of sports. I was interested. I went off to school at Michigan State. My freshman year, I did nothing. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I had no structure. And after a year in college, I was like, man, I really need to sort of throw myself into something. There was an internship with the Michigan State Athletic Department, the sales and marketing department. They hired 25 interns. And how it worked is you basically did an interview. They brought you on, and then you would work men's and women's soccer games, volleyball games, softball and baseball games, wrestling matches, tennis matches, right? And I was the guy that's on the field just hucking T-shirts into the crowd. I'm the one shooting the T-shirt cannons into the crowd. I had no idea what I was doing. They would hand me a script and a rundown, and they would say, okay, here's your assignment for the game. Just make sure you do it. And I was really just sort of that executional work, right? As I went through college, I sort of was like, I want to be more involved with this. I want to be more involved with why are we doing this type of stuff during these games? What's the benefit to it? And I just started working more. I started working more events, just volunteering for more events, get more involved, asking more questions, starting to work in the office more, just get involved, right? As I got to be a senior, I got more responsibility at Michigan State. I was serving as a marketing contact for some of the Olympic sports. And then my graduation came, and really I wasn't sure where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in sports because I had been doing it for a couple of years. And I went back to grad school, and it was the right thing for me to do at the time. I got a full-time job with Michigan State's athletic department. Everything that I had been doing as an undergrad, I started to do more of as a grad, and I just started taking more ownership of it. I was more on the strategy side of it. Like I said, the behind the scenes. And I just threw myself into it for 2 years. I wasn't the highest paid employee. I didn't really have much free time over those 2 years, but it really taught me of, what goes into athletic department, what goes into working in sports. Post-college, I was still kind of in the same boat. I had been doing it for about 5 years. I knew I wanted to keep doing it, but like a lot of students, what happens, I just couldn't find a job, right? It was a very competitive industry. My time at Michigan State was done. I applied everywhere in the country, it felt like. I feel like I was flying around the country for interviews, and I just couldn't find the right position. So I started working on the grounds crew at University of Michigan. I was basically waking up every morning at 5 a.m. and I was picking up trash, refilling the trash cans, cutting grass, weed whipping, doing that kind of thing for about 6 months. And I started to think, okay, maybe I'll find something other than sports to work in. But I was still applying, trying to stay involved. Ended up getting an opportunity with Michigan's athletic department in October of 2015. And I was kind of doing the same thing as I was at Michigan or at Michigan State. I was working games. I was working with the men's basketball program, a little bit with the football program, helping with on-field promotions. But I hadn't found that full-time position. And I knew I had to move at this point. I knew I had to get out of Michigan. So I ended up getting an opportunity with Northwestern. And I think that was probably the best decision I ever made, was leaving Michigan and sort of getting outside of my comfort zone and taking an opportunity somewhere where I hadn't been to Chicago that many times, and I didn't know much about the city or about Evanston. But when I got there, it felt like the right fit from day one. We had a smaller athletic department, felt like a family, working together. Again, I was working 10 or 11 different sports throughout the year, right? And it was a lot of time, a lot of effort, but we had a good thing going there. Like I said, the men's basketball team made the tournament my first year, so that was really exciting. We actually played some of our games out in Rosemont at a temporary basketball arena. So I got a lot of good experience there, basically taking a team and driving an hour away for home games, just from the operational side of things. And I just learned a lot. I was assistant director of marketing there. I learned a lot from my bosses, from my supervisors. There are a lot of people there that I view as mentors still to this day. After a couple of years, there was an opportunity here back in Detroit. And I interviewed for it. I didn't get it. 6 months went by. I got a call that the person who did ended up leaving. They offered it to me again. And I just jumped at it. It was a chance for me to come back home. And I've been here ever since. So, it is not like this. And I don't think I've ever met anyone that I work with that has just been like this. A lot of times it's going sideways, going up, sideways, you're moving around. You're just looking for the best opportunity for yourself. And you're taking it from there. So there's no right answer in sports. There's no just one path that you're going to take. I'm sure you guys have had different paths to your positions now too. So any advice to a student would be, don't give up, keep trying, network, build your network. Don't just make a connection, build the connection, because you never know who you're going to be able to call one day to get you that job. So it's been an interesting journey to this point, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even just listening to that, you can tell the ups and the downs. And there at the end, you're like, I applied for the job and I didn't get the job with the Lions. A lot of people could have been defeated, but you put your best foot forward so that 6 months later they call you and say, hey, the position's open again. Do you still want the position? So, I mean, that's just a credit to your resiliency. And I think it's great advice to the students, don't give up. Like you said network, and a great way for them to network, real simple. Right now, you're listening to Andrew, but connect with him on LinkedIn. We put the link in the comments so that you guys can find it real easily. If you have other questions we don't get to, feel free to send those over LinkedIn. Let them know you saw him on before the snap. But I want to get to another question from one of our students, and this is Zach, who attends University of Nebraska. And you mentioned in your story that you got your master's degree. Now, a lot of these students are undergraduate students that are watching the program. Would you advise, hey, go get the master's degree? It made me, such a better professional today, or it depends on the situation? Kind of give us some more insight there about that master's program and the importance for you to do that.
How I view the master's degree is it's got to be the right time for you. I mean, everyone's different, right? For me, getting the master's degree, that was just it was convenience and timing for me. It was just the right next step. There's really no right or wrong in terms of getting your master's degree. If you have an opportunity out of college as an undergrad, and you want to take it, then take it. If you feel like you want to get more experience and more knowledge while you're still on campus and around school, then do that. I mean, there's no right answer there. I think from my perspective, from a hiring perspective, a master's degree is great, right? It shows commitment. It shows that you put the time and effort into it, but it's not necessarily a necessity. We just look for the top candidates and the right candidates that fit the position. So from a master's degree standpoint, it's kind of half and half. The people I know in the industry that have it and don't. It's just about what's right for you at the time. If that feels what's right, then do it. If you have another opportunity, then feel free to take it.
I think that's great advice. I mean, this isn't my program, but I was in a similar situation. I had the opportunity to go be a GA and get a master's. I had an opportunity to come work at the Hall of Fame. I chose to come get the experience, and maybe someday I'll go back and get my master's. So I think what you're saying, it kind of just depends on the situation. It depends on what's best for you. There's not really a right versus wrong answer. So It's cool to
No, and
see. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say you can always go back and get it, right? And when you start to get in your career, you lose the structure of school, right? Like it's not like you're going to class every day for an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, or whatever it is. But you still want to keep learning as you get in your career. It might not be a degree that you get, but there might be a course that you take, or a lesson that you learn, or a development course that you do to continue to better yourself and just stay on track with what's going on. So, I mean, master's degrees are great. It's very structured for you, but you got to continue to learn as you go throughout your career. And you can always go back to school at any point if you want to. So it's more about continually learning rather than just trying to knock something out right out of college.
For sure. We've had other guests talk about the importance of being a lifelong learner, which is exactly what you're talking about there, whether it's structured schooling or, you read a book, you go to a conference, whatever, where you're finding ways to better yourself. Now, this next question, I'm going to have to combine like 3 or 4 students' questions into one because there's some similarities here and they're curious. You work in marketing. You talked a little bit about during that COVID season, you were even helping on the social media side a little bit more than maybe usual. When there's a transaction, player gets signed, player gets drafted, player gets traded, how is the organization, marketing, social media, how are you guys alerted to this? The one student's like, does the GM just call and say, hey, we just made this trade, Matthew Stafford's going to the Rams, so go ahead and get the social media post ready, or what? Like, how does that work, the inner workings being with the Lions, when something like that happens?
Yeah, I don't want to give like specifics, but there's just communication back and forth with our football staff. There's a way that they'll communicate, and obviously we get the message out in a timely fashion. Things are always happening throughout the year. It's just sort of, again, being in constant communication with our football staff, and just having a good relationship with them, and that's pretty much it there. From getting too deep into the specifics.
No, that's plenty good. And I'm sure, as the organization, it's important that the information is put out there the right way more than anything. Sometimes people, they run their website or, even working for an ESPN or CBS Sports or whoever, like sometimes they're racing to be the first. But if you're the Detroit Lions, you got to make sure that this communication is done the right way. So that's probably the most important piece with that, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I'll say, we have staff members, obviously. We have communication departments, PR departments, our social departments that are all on top of that as well. So one of the benefits to working in the NFL for a club is that there are a lot of staff members around, and your job gets a little bit more specific. In college, you're sort of doing everything, right? You're doing email marketing, you're helping with the social media, you're probably running the promotions on a game day. In the NFL or most professional leagues, you get a little bit more specific with your job duties and role. And that's where the communication comes in, because at Northwestern, I could just put a social post out, and I could also put out our promotional schedule, and then I could send an email, and I could just do all of that from my desk, right? But here with the Lions, there's people that do those different responsibilities. So it's more about communicating and making sure you have the right consistent message across the board with those people. And like I said, communication just becomes way more crucial as you get up to the NFL.
So I'm going to ask a personal question, actually, based on your experience here, because I think this will be beneficial for our students. You've had the opportunity to, I guess, kind of have that intern role. You talked about the internship with Michigan State. You've had the opportunity now, working with training camp and that type of thing, where you're hiring these entry level, these intern level positions. To you, for our students that's probably their next step, is that entry level or that internship position. What stands out to you first in an interview when you're interviewing these students? And then secondly, okay, I got the job, I got the internship. Now, how can I stand out and make them remember me in case there is a full-time position or, a more permanent position that I could get? What do they need to do as these entry level and interns to stand out?
So I'll start before the application process. Is if you're a college student or even a high school student, it's about getting involved, right? It's about learning what you like and what you don't like. It's about just getting the experience while you're in college, while you have that opportunity to get out there and just sort of interact and build your network. Right now, when you're in college, that's the perfect time to do that. When it comes to looking at resumes and applicants, I think you should always have a resume that's tailored to the job that you're applying for, right? So I think a lot of people get stuck with, I need to have the perfect resume, the perfect template, the perfect format. Well, if you send that resume to 20 different jobs and it's the same resume, it's not going to be tailored to each of those jobs. Each of those jobs is different, right? It might be the same job title, but every job is different at the team or the organization that you're applying for. So you got to be diving into those job descriptions that are put online. You got to be tailoring your resume of what experience do I have that relates to that position specifically. So when we look at resumes and applications, we're looking for those types of people, the people that went above and beyond to get their resume out there. A lot of you probably have the feeling that you're dropping your resume into an online portal and then it's just gone forever, right? What are you doing that stands above and beyond everyone else when you submit that application? How is it different from everyone else? And that's how you stand out. And that starts with the experience that you're getting before you even submit that resume. When you actually get the position, how can you stand out from your peers? So in most cases, you're probably not the only person. There's probably some other interns. In my case, I have training camp assistants. There's 6 people total every year. How are you standing out above and beyond those folks? What are you doing? Are you staying later? Are you arriving earlier? Are you volunteering more? Are you asking more questions during the internship? What are you doing that is above and beyond those people? How are you standing out? And then from there, it kind of people stand out at that point, right? It's like, if you put in the time and the effort, a lot of people don't. So if you put in the time and the effort, it really, from there, you stand out, and then you just kind of keep going up from there. So really, whatever job, I guess my mentality has been, whatever job I get into, how am I standing out from my peers? What am I doing above and beyond what everyone else is doing? Sometimes it's not always about time, right? Sometimes it's not about working longer hours. It's about working smarter. It's about automating some of those processes that you do that are consistent. In my case, there's a lot of things that we do consistently year over year over year. So I don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's like, how do I automate that process so that, I can knock it out and I can spend more time, working on a strategy beside on something else that we may have not done. So it's about working smarter, not necessarily always working harder, working smarter, and just figuring out a way to stand out amongst the crowd.
Yeah, I think you did a good job of breaking it down before the resume submitted. Make sure you're getting the necessary experience, whether you volunteer with a local high school or your high school or college, and then now you're filling out the resume. Read the job description. Read the job description before you submit your resume. Make sure that your resume fits what you're applying for, and then once you get the job, just doing the little things to try to stand out. I think you did a great job explaining that for our students. Last question I have from our students, though. This is from Aaron, a student at Brown University in Rhode Island. Favorite part of your job?
Every day, every season is different. In the 11 years I've been doing this now, every year has been different. Every year we always get a new schedule. Every year there's always new challenges. There's always good, there's always bad. I said it earlier, but we always kind of stay in the middle, never get too high, never get too low. But we're always looking for new challenges. We're always looking for ways to stay creative. One of the good and bad things about the NFL is that our colleagues across all 32 teams, they're trying to be innovative and they're trying to be the first ones to do something, which that elevates us to be innovative and try to be the first ones to do something. So if you get content and you keep doing the same stuff year over year over year, you're going to fall behind. So we're always looking to do new things, try new things, be ahead of the curve. And I think that's the best part about working in my job, but just working in sports in general is every day and every year is different.
For sure. That's definitely something that holds true for us. Jake and I working here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Very rarely are you going to show up and the day feel like, oh, wow, this is the same as yesterday. A lot of change, especially when you're working major events. You guys have a home game, 10 times a year. We have the Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinement week powered by Johnson Controls. That's different every year. It's a new class that you're promoting. We do new programs throughout each school year. So that definitely rings true here working in sports as well. Well, Andrew, thank you for being a part of the program. I know Jake probably has a question or two to wrap things up, but on behalf of myself, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us today on Before the Snap.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Andrew, before we wrap up here, just a couple quick ones. And, working in sports and especially, when you're getting out in the community and doing those special appearances, truly making someone's day, someone's lifetime by just doing one small 1 minute recognition. You take a step back and you truly love what you do. You love going to work every day. They say you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. So why do you love what you do?
I think where I'm at in my career now is we have the ability to reach so many people and make such a big impact. So I love that part of it. I love everything about my job, to be honest. I feel incredibly lucky, but with that power is obviously the responsibility that we're impacting as much people as possible. We're interacting with our fans as much as possible, putting on a good experience for everyone we interact with. And just knowing that we have that reach is great. I represent the Lions, right? So I represent that brand. I want to make sure that I put the brand in the most positive light as I can. And just knowing that we sort of have the ability to touch so many people across the country, especially here in Metro Detroit, it is amazing. So we just want to make sure that we're fulfilling that responsibility.
And the last question today to wrap everything up, it's a question we ask every time. And I think it's a good way to kind of send everybody out with their next steps, that one thing to think of. So many great tips and tricks, whether it comes to networking or setting yourself up or, about the journey that you take to your career that you ultimately end up with. There's one thing you want everybody who tuned in today, for Nathan and I, for Jerry, for all the students who are going to watch this down the road. What is the one thing you want somebody to walk away with after their time today?
The one thing is to get involved right now. If you're sitting there and you don't have a job in college, or maybe you're in high school, wherever you're at in your career, just get involved. You all have athletic departments that you can work with. There's a ton of teams that could be looking for someone to run their social media, maybe to send some emails out, help promote their games, get fans to their games. Just get involved and, look for those opportunities. The first opportunity that you take, it doesn't necessarily have to be what you're going to do in your career, but it's just get involved, learn what you like, learn what you don't like, and it makes it way easier when you're, walking down the graduation aisle in a couple of years, and just makes it easier to know what you really want to do. Instead of spending post-college those couple of years being like, I'm trying to figure it out. Try and figure it out now while you're in college. You have that opportunity, you have that time. Obviously enjoy it, enjoy the social aspects of college, but just make sure that you're getting involved when you can and building that network. Don't just make a connection. Don't just add someone on LinkedIn. You got to build the connection, right? We're all getting messages on LinkedIn all the time with making a connection. How are you building that connection above and beyond someone else? So get involved, build that network, and it'll all work out.
Awesome. What a great way to wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series, featuring Andrew Frey of the Detroit Lions, their director of marketing events. Andrew, again, thank you so much for being a part of the program. Again, I apologize for the mispronunciation of your name. I'm sure you get it all the time. But thank you for being a part of the program. Truly, for myself and Nathan, Jerry, all of our team here at the Hall of Fame, giving some of your time for us to truly teach what it is like to have a career in and around the NFL. Before we leave today, as a reminder, just subscribe, like, follow all the social media channels for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as well as those with the Detroit Lions. We're going to be announcing our class of 2022. So make sure you're tuned into that. See all the great interviews we have coming out on our podcast, The Mission, hosted by our great friend and coworker here, Jameer Howerton. He's talking to all the semifinalists who might get their name announced at the NFL Honors Show Thursday before the Super Bowl. If you want to learn more about Before the Snap, you want to get that inside information, learn what the schedule is going to be like leading up to the programs, shoot us an email at education@profootballhof.com, and we'll add you to our awesome mailing list. Again, that's education@profootballhof.com. Again, Andrew, thank you so much. Next week, we've got a really special guest, our own Northeast Ohio's own Jay Crawford. And if that name might ring a bell, you might remember him from his time with the big network ESPN. He started a show called Cold Pizza, which isn't around today, but if you watch ESPN, you've seen First Take. Well, that was First Take before First Take was around. So Jay Crawford was a host of that. Now he works for our local NBC affiliate in Cleveland, Ohio, WKYC. We're going to interview him about his experiences in the media world from ESPN to what he does now today with WKYC. Again, we said at the beginning, football, Nathan mentioned it's a 365-day job. There's no off season. There's always something that you can be out promoting and working on. And Andrew, you do a great job of that. So thank you for everything you do for the game of football. Thank you for all that you do for us indirectly here at the Hall of Fame. And thank you for being a part of the program today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
So from myself, from Nathan, from Jerry, all the way up to our president, Mr. Jim Porter, of Andrew, thank you so much. All of our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you here.